Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale Leadership Summit. You're about to watch panel number 2, Digital Transformation. How South Florida's business and civic leaders are embracing digital tools to streamline operations, upskill talent, and stay competitive in an increasingly tech-driven economy. Enjoy.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I want to do some quick thank yous first to Abby and your team at CNA, to the Riverside, and especially Ms. Catherine for her tremendous kindness this morning. And to all of you, I personally love Broward County, and our firm loves Broward County and Fort Lauderdale. And the reason is because of all of you, your ideas, your generosity, and just making this the best city in the Southeast United States. And so thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. So to kick off, I'm going to start where the last panel ended with his idea of it's all about the ships. And we're going to talk about your relationship with technology as it has evolved over time. And so first, and we'll start with Mr. Rogers. Would you just go down and briefly, in a couple words, introduce yourself to the crowd before we start our conversation?
Sure. Rodney Rogers, born and raised here in Fort Lauderdale. And our firm is celebrating 100 years this year. So that's a big deal for us.
Hi everyone, my name is Vera Nieuwland. I'm with Kaufman Rawson. We're a CPA tax and advisory firm, and I lead our digital transformation services. So I work with our clients on digital transformation.
Michael Plattner. Oh. How's that? How's that?
How's that? Oh, it's working. Okay. Technology. I'm getting my head around it. Michael Plattner, managing partner for Lewis Brisbois. We're originally a California-based law firm, and we may now be one of, if not the largest group of lawyers in Broward County, with over 50 lawyers in our office here. I had Jonathan's job at Gunster for many years when I came to Fort Lauderdale in 1994. And so it seems like a million years ago, and here we are having this great time at Lewis Brisbois in Broward County.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ron Moffett. I'm the Executive Vice President for CareerSource Broward. CareerSource Broward is your local workforce board. We're the administrative entity. We're here to help to improve the quality of life of our job seekers and help our businesses maintain and improve their competitive position here in Broward County.
Thank you, Ron. So Ron, we'll start with you on the first question. This will be a question for each of you. How do you define digital transformation in your organization, and where are you seeing the most immediate impact?
That's a great question. I think it's beyond just the X's and the O's. To your point, it's about transformation. And in order to get transformation, everyone in the organization has to be focused on that transformation. If you enter the cocoon as a caterpillar, you can't exit the cocoon as a caterpillar. Transformation requires metamorphosis. And so it's more than just implementing new systems. It's about a different way of thinking and getting the whole organization to think differently and act differently towards the transformation and accepting artificial intelligence into your work world. Immediate impacts are, putting everyone to work towards the transformation increases that buzz, or it infuses that buzz. Everyone's excited. Everyone's happy. One thing I know about workers, if they're happy workers, they're more productive workers. It's going to lead to more continuous improvement and a better customer experience.
Good question.
We have our work cut out for us. We have 1,600 lawyers across 35 states, and the leaders of some of our key national groups happen to be based here in wonderful Fort Lauderdale. And so making that seem seamless, bringing all those resources that we can to the local population requires that we manage technology exceptionally well. And that's our agenda, is how do you use technology to improve client service? If you can drive client service with technology, that means a lot of challenges get overrun, including how do you get people to come in the office when the technology is so good that nobody wants to come to the office anymore? And the clients want to come to the office sometimes, but Zoom is its own sort of intimacy. And, we go on about all the things that technology helps us connect, and yet at the same time can create distance if we're not really self-aware of the whole relationship issue that the other panel was talking about, which is so critical to putting 2 + 2 and making that equal something more than 4.
Thank you. And so, Vera, how are you doing that, like your firm, but also on behalf of clients?
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we work with clients, but I actually want to share a little bit about our own digital transformation journey, and we share this story often with clients. So we've actually branded our digital transformation and how we define it as digital evolution, meaning that this is not a 5-year transformation project. It's a constant evolution of becoming better in how we operate, how we serve our clients, and how we bring tools to empower our employees. So to your point before, we really want to embed this in our DNA and culture of embracing technology and kind of constant change. So a couple of examples that have been really instrumental to us. I think the biggest thing was investment in our data infrastructure. This allowed us to probably launch over 100 dashboards across the firm to really empower employees with insights to make their own decision making and kind of build the foundation for automation and now leaning into AI, which I'll touch on later, where we're actively looking at improving the client experience end to end. Made a lot of investments in our customer relationship management, and as an example, we're recently improved our engagement letter and billing system, allowing that to be a better experience, which immediately improved our outstanding receivables. So focusing on immediate impact and measurable impact is really important. And now we're actively focused on AI. I think we believe that that's going to be transformational for our firm and across industries. So actively looking how we can implement and experiment.
One follow-up question for you on that is, for any organization that's kind of at the beginning of that process, what did your work team look like internally as you brainstormed what to do and when and how?
On our firm internally?
Yes.
So this process started before I joined our firm even. And a constant evolution of a combination of, it's actually now owned between our COOs, our operations officer, and we have a chief innovation officer. And they really kind of work very well hand in hand between being a think tank and being execution power into the organization. And it's a combination of business experts and technology expertise. And as trends and technology evolve, there's new people coming on the team of data scientists. Now we need expertise on machine learning and AI. So it's kind of a constant evolution. And I think as we're on this journey, the more ambassadors we have across the firm that are love this and they're adopting, and then they help the firm move forward.
And Rami, how has RMZ embraced digital transformation?
Well, the word transformation means dramatic, right? And we all know that. So I wasn't there for the first 5 decades, but I've been there for most of the last 50 years. So to put in perspective, when I started practicing law, we had the only thing that would be close to technology was called a MAC card, an electric typewriter. You push in this little deal and it prints things out and fill in people's names. So dramatic is going from the MAC card, right, to AI. And that it's obviously in perspective wise, you all know how quick technology has advanced. So we're ready for it. I'm diving into it, but the old saying, teaching old dogs new tricks is not the easiest thing in the world, right? But we are definitely, as a firm, knowing that this is the next level of service, because we measure everything with our core values. And trustworthiness is so important. That confidentiality piece of technology is so important. And we struggle with that a little bit. Second thing, we're service oriented. So we want to make sure it's efficient and gives our clients the best value for our time spent. And obviously, attention to detail is so important. If it helps us as lawyers, it's going to help our clients.
Thank you. And you touched on some of the challenges. Has anyone else experienced challenges in the digital transformation internally that you would like to share?
Yeah. Happy to jump on this one. I think digital transformation is hard, and one of the biggest challenges of adoption is human behavior. Like, I think people in general, we all have like an element that's, to your point, resistant to change, or like resistance to change. If there's not direct kind of value to how it's going to improve my life, like why would I change and not just do how I'm used to doing it? So I think digital transformation is as much of a change management project that it is a technology project. And it starts with leadership buy-in and tone at the top, super important. Ongoing knowledge sharing, a couple of things of examples that we've implemented. I think they all together make a successful change management program, but we're constantly knowledge sharing, doing webinars, news articles, and we've actually recently launched a podcast that kind of demystified some of these concepts and share success stories. Been very well received. We do surveys to kind of get a pulse on across teams and generations, how they think about like things like AI and new tools, and constantly like reinforcement of messages to kind of, yeah, really get that excitement also and drive adoption.
I think it's really easy to make mistakes. And so the best thing I could share is learn from those mistakes quickly. We rolled out an entirely new dashboard to all of our lawyers last year, and everyone hated it. It was too complicated. You couldn't figure out how to get the information you were used to getting. It was kind of at odds with people's workflows. So we had our data scientists say, hey guys, can you create something that's a one-pager that's a lot easier for people to use? And they did that. And even though we made a mistake, you know what they say, the best learning comes from learning from your mistakes. And so I strongly believe that benefited us a lot now in coming up with a one-page dashboard for our lawyers that lets them provide much better client service instead of, clients like to know how much money have I spent this week. That's a good thing to be able to answer, kind of turning on a dime. Or what lawyers are available to work on my particular matter. That's a good thing to be able to answer. So now we can do that. We got that at our fingertips and we're rolling out that new dashboard. And so be prepared to make mistakes and don't be put off by that, because that's part of the multi-step process to success in digital transformation.
Just to add, really important to pay attention to the culture and the change management aspect of this. I agree 100% with that. And people always want to know what's in it for me. They want to know that with them, they've rose in the organization because they're perceived as subject matter experts, and now that may be eroding, and so there is that resistance to change. And our job used to be taking data and analyzing data and turning it into information. Now the job is going to be taking that information and turning it into individualized intelligence within the organization. And part of that is you're trying to grow a company of geniuses. That is major disruption in the company. And I think it's important to recognize, as Sandy Michael McDonald pointed out, many businesses are small and medium-sized businesses, and they don't have the resources to pay attention to all the aspects of change management and that digital divide or that leadership gap or that resistance to change. And so they have to have the resources using partnerships. We heard that term earlier today. I think that's incredibly important, especially here locally with the education partners that we have in town, to take advantage and leverage online training resources and other resources like CareerSource Broward can provide as well.
That concludes the warm-up section of our panel. So let's get into some specifics. So Ron, assessing the state of the workforce in Broward County, how are you seeing employers prepare for the changes that AI will bring?
It's a great question, and I think it's not a one size fits all. I think, we see some employers who have the resources they're doing, and I know I'm going to say this acronym out of place because I'm focused internally on the organization, but they're doing internal SWOT organization. They're doing SWOT analysis, and they're looking at how work is designed. They're looking at, when they're implementing AI, what does that mean for governance and compliance? How are decisions going to be made? When is AI going to be used? And what are those guardrails for compliance that are going to be needed when we talk about ethical implementation of AI? So, but But there's a disparity in how organizations are doing that. And so one of the things we see across all organizations in Broward County is they're redesigning work and they're redesigning workflows around that work. We know that we're in a tight labor market. We can't hire our way out of this. And so they're looking to redesign the job description, looking at the four corners or the compartmentalization that used to be the job and expanding that job and taking advantage of that and addressing that misalignment of skills. You know, there's an old cartoon out there, I think probably most of us have seen, where two managers are around the water cooler and one is lamenting the fact that training employees is so expensive. And, you know, what if we train all of our employees and they leave? And then the other one says, yeah, but what if we don't train them and they stay? Again, I think it's, you know, one of those things where we see it's kind of like moving into a new house. It's dark in the room. You don't know where the furniture is and you're starting to stub your toe and there's some pain associated with that. You have to get beyond that. It's not an always going to be an easy process to transform an organization. But again, I think that under the leadership of Josh Levy, Mayor Trantelis and Mayor Furr and our board of directors, we are going to be putting out a request for proposals for an AI guidebook or a playbook, if you will, to help our medium and smaller sized businesses figure out how to transform and how to take advantage of AI and leverage AI for competitive advantage rather than seeing it as a disruption. So those are the kind of things that we're seeing going on in the workforce world.
Right. And Romney, I actually wanted to give you a chance to talk about AI as well. So you mentioned that RMZ is turning 100 years old.
So going back to what I said earlier, we measure everything with our core values, and change is hard. We all know that. Nobody wants to change unless they have to. But we see obviously the value for the client of technology. It sort of goes without saying. So when we looked at this coming tsunami, because I think it is, I mean, bottom line is all of us use AI every day. I'm guarantee you that, right? And I can remember going to my brother's house. His little granddaughter was there, 4 years old, asking mom a question. And mom says, well, I don't know. And she goes, Mommy, Google it, right? And that was like 20 years ago. So we know that AI is going to change all our lives for the good, and RMZ knows that too. So again, we're looking at products because you got to add to what you have. We don't have internally we don't want internally a workforce that knows everything about anything. So we want to hire experts, but we got to say it's trustworthy information. Now, these trustworthy products, will it service our clients, and will it be efficient? And that part of the detail piece is it gives you a broad scope if you really dig in to what you're trying to accomplish. You have to measure it against all your practice groups. You know, we do a lot of estate planning, we do real estate, we do business transactions, and we do litigation in all those areas. Well, AI can help us in every single one of those. So that's how we're attacking it. We have a great operations manager, and she's going to town, thank goodness. And the rest of us can wait and make the decisions based on the information that fit all that criteria.
Thank you. Michael, while automation creates efficiency, it also presents new challenges related to managing processes, and you want to maintain your quality at all times. How has Louis Brisbois weighed the pros and cons that come with more advanced digital tools in the current environment that we're in?
A few things, Jonathan. One, we've encouraged lawyers and our administrative staff throughout the company to bring ideas to the table. So we recently just added a whole new system for tracking corporate clients, different entities, and when those entities will be time to renew their certifications with the state and do their annual minutes and things like that. That level of automation we previously did not have in the way that we have now. Did that cause us some headaches in terms of what upfront investment do we need to make for that for a firm of our size? Yes. Did we run an ROI analysis and figure that out? Yes. More even more challenging is the use of AI, right? We've had situations where, in fact, we've seen the use of AI is at a very awkward state because it's tempting. We've made an investment in AI. We made an investment in AI for brief writing. And then you get a brief written, legal documents written by the AI, and then you have to check it absolutely from top to bottom because, in fact, it's not usually all correct. It's not your best legal work. But did it make it faster? Did it help you be smarter? Did it catch something maybe you wouldn't have caught? Yes, but this is also a relationship between humans and artificial intelligence where you have to navigate that handshake and really be careful about it and make sure you don't screw it up. We've seen situations where experts have been challenged in court as having used AI to come to a certain conclusion and cross-examined and lost cases because they weren't able to satisfy the trier of fact that they had sufficiently checked the AI. So talk about an awkward point in time now for all of us who want to get the benefit of these tools, which are definitely going to make us smarter, but which also are pretty treacherous if you don't integrate them with the human beings and the expertise that has to make this work.
And Michael, on that last point about the relationship between humans and the technology in that example, one thing in our law firm that's been really important is when we learn about ethics and about training and the culture of the law firm, the integrity to make sure that you're using reliable sources and checking them and then checking them again really is integral now to training lawyers at all levels in a way that it wasn't maybe 10 years ago.
Right, you make a fabulous point is training lawyers has completely been turned on its head, right? I kind of think the young lawyers are training us a little bit lately because they're coming out of law school with a lot of exposure to this. And I encourage everybody to be really open to what your youngest, newest, most highly educated employees are bringing to the table, because that's a way to really leverage what's happening. This is a rapidly growing field. And the younger you are, the more recently you might have been exposed to some of the most coolest innovations that you know can get through an ROI analysis. Let us old guys all figure that out too, but we can kind of meet in the middle.
Vera, in your interview with Invest, you highlighted some of the top challenges associated with digital transformation. From your perspective, what are some common barriers that businesses face when implementing new initiatives that focus on digital transformation?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of themes that throughout me working in this space, we continue to kind of see as recurring themes that can be barriers or pitfalls. I think the first one is a lack of clear strategy and an execution process. It's so easy to get stuck in projects that seem like a great idea, but there's not a clear kind of governance or process around it. And then it's hard to really drive success and outcomes, which is kind of the second point is driving clear value and ROI. ROI is one of the biggest challenges. You mentioned we measure everything from core values. It's kind of what we always say similarly is like every project connected to business outcomes. How does this relate to your core strategy or what you're trying to achieve as a business? And constantly find the metrics and constantly measure your project against those. And then to your point about failures, when something's not working, being able to let go of it, which is hard, but it's needed for those true kind of innovations. We spoke a lot about culture, barrier, but really know your organization and make it fit. If you have a risk-averse organization, get risk and compliance involved in projects early on and get them excited about it and make them feel that they have a seat at the table. I think the last thing that I'm sure everyone in this room kind of can relate to is how to where to start and how to just keep up with things. Like even I spend my days in kind of like I love this space and it's impossible to keep up with all the change and all the technologies that are out there. And at some point, you'll just have to kind of take some risks, make some decisions, do some experiments, and see how it works.
Thank you all.